Where this?
Yeah, I had that problem there.
It's in! Campbell comes off the bench to be a hero, a superhero. Breakthrough. It's taken a while, but it's been worth the wait for Cardiff City.
Hey guys, I'm Si and welcome to A.C.E Podcast Nation, the home of the Andy Campbell Football Show. This is episode number 78. The show is live on YouTube, Facebook and Twitter. A.C.E Podcast Nation is also your home to many great shows and series featuring top guests, expert analysts and more. So please follow us on social media, subscribe to the YouTube channel to keep up to date on upcoming shows and guests. And you can also get the audio versions of every single show at your usual podcast and radio platforms, as well as follow just the Andy Campbell shows on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram at A.C.E Footy Show. And so just as we wait for the chats to fill up on the various platforms, a big thank you to Black Diamond Sports. Black Diamond Sports is a global sports agency representing sports stars from around the world. For more information, you can visit their social media pages and their website. Links to both in the description as well as in the closing credits at the end of the show. And today's show, as usual, sponsored by Darren Ralston and Bespoke Financial. And here's a quick word from them.
My mummy and daddy have been talking about life insurance. It sounds like something to protect my brother and me, but I don't really understand. Then my Auntie Louise told Mummy about Bespoke Financial Teesside. She said they're a local company who helped her with her life insurance. Mummy got in touch, and because they're based locally, a man called Darren was able to come to our house. He was really friendly. Darren stayed for a cup of tea and made it all really easy to understand. He said that life insurance will protect our home and family if anything bad were to happen. Like if Mummy or Daddy got sick, then we'd get enough money to take care of us, and our house would be paid for so we wouldn't get taken away. After an hour, Darren said goodbye and Mummy and Daddy seemed a lot happier. Once it was all sorted, we could all relax and watch a film together as a family. I don't know why they didn't do it sooner.
Bespoke Financial specialise in life insurance, critical illness, income protection, mortgages and sports cover. And we thank them for sponsoring the show. So, with no further ado, joining me this evening, first of all, the goal collector, the fox in the box, still the king of the Millennium Stadium, and still Davy Jones' favourite son, ex-Cardiff City and Middlesbrough striker, the goal machine of the Middlesbrough over 40s, Mr. Andrew Campbell. How goes it, my friend?
Hello, mate. This is a big one for me because I was fortunate enough to obviously play with our guest, and he helped me in a number of things, both on and off the pitch for me. So this is I'm looking forward to digging deep and reliving some of the things that I watched as a young lad coming up. I'm going to make him feel a little bit old because I remember him back in the day further before I got lucky enough to play with him as a young lad. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, me too, mate. I'm looking forward to speaking to one of my heroes growing up. Who's just a legend of the game. So it's going to be good. But tonight's guest started his career at Doncaster Rovers before playing for some top clubs around Europe, including Leeds United, Benfica, Middlesbrough, West Ham, Leicester and more, as well as representing England 3 times. It's the legend that is Mr. Brian Deane. Welcome, Brian. How are you, mate?
I'm good, thanks. Guys, that intro's too good for me.
Hey, it's not, mate. Don't give yourself some unjust credit, mate, I tell you. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
You've had a great career, and I was fortunate enough to share changing room with you, Bryce. I'd like to say that I do know you pretty well, and I know what gets you ticking and things. But what I'd like to know before obviously we go into some of the huge clubs that you played for, obviously Middlesbrough, just to name one. What got you into football, and what Obviously, you got brought up in Yorkshire. You were born in Leeds, and obviously played in the Yorkshire area for huge chunks in your career. So how was Yorkshire a factor in football, and how did you get into football itself?
Well, first of all, my my heroes growing up were the first World Cup I saw was the 1978 World Cup, and the first one I can remember. And I took a lot of inspiration from the Argentinian team. I remember my first pair of notable football boots were a pair of Puma World Cup Menottis, which were named after the manager, Cesar Menotti.
Legends.
And what was it? And the other one was a pair of Patrick Keegan tops. And I actually remember, I was talking to somebody the other day about this. I actually used to go to bed with them, and you used to, in them days, the leather was quite hard, so you'd like press soft as possible. My you know, I mean, we're going back to 1978, so, you know, for me, it was very limited what you could actually, in terms of what football you got to watch. So, you know, it was a cup final, it was perhaps a little bit of match of the day. But I think that the World Cup was very inspirational for me. You know, so that's really where it all started. I went down to, I went for trials with a club, very famous club in Leeds called Yorkshire Amateurs, when I was 10, 11 years old myself, and another lad from my school.
They've got a good track record, Brian, haven't they? They've got a really good track record about bringing players through.
Yeah, they have, and I mean, you know, it was, you know, there were, I think Gary Strodder played there.
Yeah, he did,
yeah. And Andy Watson, who played for Swansea, you'll know.
Yeah.
Andy's a very good friend of mine, actually. We grew up in the same street. Clive Freeman, you know, so, you know, it's funny how you kind of look back on your childhood, and some of the things that happened shaped my kind of desire to play football, and a lot of that was based on the fact that, you know, my parents, they always had to work hard. My dad, you know, worked these shifts. My mum was always working, and the love of football came from myself, you know, with them supporting me, with you know, if I needed boots or whatever, if I needed bus fare, you know, so it was something that, you know, I was never kind of pushed into it by my parents. It was just, I grew up with a dream, and fortunately for me, that kind of desire never really burnt out.
That's a great thing. So it's a great start-up, you know, and it reminds me similar of teams in the northeast that obviously we were quite lucky around here, you know what I mean. And I'll go to a team which obviously I didn't play for, but Wallsend Boys Club, for example, who Newcastle plays, you know, he's most famous in where Gaza came through, Shearer came through, etc. You know that the Yorkshire Amateurs and teams, the Martins of this world, who I came through as a young lad, who Stewie Downing, Jonathan Woodgate, etc. So, you know, they have this affiliation with players to come through. You know what I mean? International footballers, Premier League footballers, etc. And it's great to see, because it gives the next generation of players that hope and the dreams that they can aspire to be the next Brian Deane or the next Jonathan Woodgate or the next Alan Shearer, the next Paul Gascoigne. And it's great for kids because money's generated into these clubs because of those ex-players, and you know what I mean, the facilities are a lot better, I'm guessing, than when you played at. You know what I mean? I remember I went down to the local area where I played, and the facilities when I was there, it was one pitch and we all shared the same pitch, about 12 teams, and by Christmas the whole thing was wrecked, and it was, you know what I mean, you were playing on mud.
Hey, never mind by Christmas, team on that pitch was a different way, you know,
by the afternoon.
It was like a mud bath. You know, because the team before had turned it all up. I mean, it was just a different era, wasn't it? I mean, I think in those days we all had to be a little bit more resilient. I mean, you know, you talk about Sunday League clubs and these clubs coming through. I mean, a lot of them have been swallowed up by the fact that clubs take kids so young now into the academies and all the rest of it, and it just means that they don't get. It's so focused on football that you don't get time to do anything else. We used to do things like we'd play cricket in the summer. We'd you know, we used to play, you know, tennis, everything, and that helped me to become a real rounded sportsman. I wasn't sort of like, it wasn't like I was just put in a line and said, right, it's football or nothing. You know, we were doing different things, and Look, I don't know whether it's a good system or not now. I mean, I've not had any children come through, you know, and going into the system, so I wouldn't know. But I have friends, and they say, you know, right, you have to come at this time, and it doesn't leave a lot of lot of opportunities for the kids to grow up. So, you know, when you talk about kids getting released at a young age, it can, I suppose, if I look at it, it can cause some issues. You know, being put in the system and then spat out pretty quickly.
It can give you that. It can give you that hate for football as well, though, Brian. Can't it? You know that I'm going back to my time as a YTS, and we've laughed and joked on here with people who with old guests and ex teammates of mine and players who I played against in the Pontins League and stuff that getting paid £37.50, and they were the happiest times of my life. You know, happiest times of my life, and you know what I mean. I was quite lucky because my brother was a YTS before me at a different club, so I knew exactly that the expectations of scrubbing boots and cleaning toilets and playing football and late nights and early mornings, and it was for me. I wouldn't change it for the world, but I don't see the young players now getting that kind of grounding.
No, it's totally different. I mean, my journey was that I didn't actually get an apprenticeship. So I broke my leg when I was 16. Broke my tibia fibula and dislocated my ankle.
Did a good job there then, didn't you?
Oh, yeah. But then we talk about resilience. I mean, for me, I was just determined. And the way I came into football was I wrote down to Doncaster for a trial. And I was fortunate that the chief scout was a guy called Dave Blake, who was from the northeast, and he'd been he was a chief scout at Leeds United when I'd been there as a kid, and recognised my name, invited me down. But yeah, it's tough. It is tough, no doubt, and it was tough for them. But look, you know, if anybody said to me, you know, the more I think about it now. If anybody says to me, would you like to be playing now? I'd say yes, because as you pointed out, you know, the facilities are amazing now. You know, the training grounds are fantastic. And everything's done for you, even more so than when we were playing and we thought we were mollycoddled. Yeah. You look at it now and it's, look, you know, it's I wish I could play football for 100 years. We all do, because once it's gone, it's gone. Yeah. And when I talk to young kids, I always try to tell them, make the best of whatever opportunities you got, because here I am now at 52 saying that the best years of my existence in terms of being an athlete and all the rest of them are well behind me. And you should never really waste those opportunities in life. So, but look, that's just how I am. You know? I totally
agree, Brian, because you were a long time retired as well, though, you know, and I think players think the career is going to last forever. You know what I mean? You're going to play this magic number of 35, and not everyone's that lucky to go that far. You know what I mean? You mentioned about players getting released, and obviously size boys in the system at Cardiff City and things, and it's listen. I sometimes 1 minute I'd love to be a footballer again. The next minute, I think it would be my worst nightmare, because I know what I know, and because I know what I know, it would probably put me off a little bit. But listen, it was the best. I wouldn't even call it a job. It's not a job. It was a hobby which paid, and it was just the best. A very, very lucky person who was. It was very to live a dream. You said that your words were you fulfilled a dream, and you know what I mean. And that dream was just, it's never ending as well, though, because something that I'm going to talk about later on, and I'll mention these words again, that word dream, because it's just, it keeps on getting revisited all the time. My goal for Cardiff City, you know what I mean, it'll live in folklore for some people, you know what I mean, and it makes it more relevant for me, and I love it, because it's something that I'm very proud of, because it reminds me of a happy time in my football life and my career.
And your life.
Yeah, well, I totally agree. You know what I mean? Exactly. It's not just about football, it's about life as well. You know what I mean? My kids, well, one of my daughters was born in Cardiff at the time, so it reminds me of everything, so it's quite emotional really to think about it. Brad, before we hit some of your clubs, we do this section called Magnificent Seven. So it's 7 quick fire questions at you, so the viewers can get a little bit of an idea about you. A few of the questions can be a little bit interesting. So let's see how you go.
Go on.
Brian Deane, the Magnificent Seven. Messi or Ronaldo?
Ronaldo.
This is the easy one.
That's the easy one out of the way. Sheffield United or Leeds?
Done your homework here, haven't you? Okay, so I'm not going to just quick fire questions. You can't have it both ways. I would say it's a difficult question for me, but from an emotional point of view, I have to say Sheffield United, because that's where it all kicked off, and I still have a big connection there with everybody in the club, whereas I don't really have that with Leeds. I kind of, Leeds is a little bit different in that, you know, I live in Leeds, I'm from Leeds, I'm you know, everything about Leeds, but when it comes to actually being involved in the club, I don't really have the same. You know, I can't rock up down to the club on a match day and somebody gives me a ticket for the director's box. So, you know, that's the esteem with which I'm felt with down at Sheffield United. So I have to say, you know, the directors down there, the owners, you know, we talk about different things, or we used to before the takeover. But yeah, so I have a closer affinity with Sheffield United.
Cool.
Like it.
Favourite TV show?
Oh gosh, too many to mention. We like to watch things like the Ozarks. I really like The Boys at the moment. You know, bit satirical, black comedy, all kinds of stuff. I watch a lot of YouTube now, actually. Find that a lot more interesting. So I don't really have that. You know, I don't really have sort of like one thing that I'll say, right, that's what I sit down and do. We're watching something called Below Deck at the moment, which is like sticking pins in my eyes, but I do it because these are the things we do. But yeah, I you know, different things, but yeah.
Like it.
Cool. Angriest teammate?
Hang on a minute. Angriest teammate. Do you know what? There wasn't really anybody I can think of who was just angry all the time. Probably me. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Don't get me mad. I'm a different person. So I'd say me.
Yeah,
honest answer, isn't it? Favourite manager to play for?
Oh, very interesting one. And in different ways, there's different managers. So there were some people I enjoyed playing for. I enjoyed playing for Dave Bassett for obvious reasons. Graham Souness, even Alan Pardew. I know he's not popular everywhere, but I enjoyed training. You know, I loved Robbo, great guy. So yeah, I can't listen. These questions aren't fair, man.
Wait for the next one. Least favourite manager to play for?
Well, that one's easy. But, I don't think I saw eye to eye with Kevin Blackwell.
You're not the first person to say that on this show.
No, you're not.
I know.
And it was only a few weeks ago as well. We had the same.
Not even the second person, I don't think, mate. Actually,
no, I think you might have just made a hat trick.
Yeah. And the final question.
If you played for him, you know why. Anyway.
Well, and the final question, my favourite. The greatest Englishman who's ever lived. Doesn't have to be football related.
Oh wow. Greatest Englishman who's ever lived.
So broad that question is.
That is like, I mean, come on, man. Where you these questions from, man? Greatest Englishman that ever lived. I'm going to say, you know what, Sir Tom. You know the guy who's just done 100 lengths?
Oh, what a shout.
Great shout. Great shout.
Do you know what, and we've never got your answer to that because we started doing them after you kind of answered all your quick fire questions.
Ask me later and I'll have a think.
Go on, yeah, we'll do it at the end. Yeah. So, Brian's going to join us for the first hour of the show, I meant to say earlier. And then me and Andy are going to do all the other stuff that we normally do at the start. We're going to do at the end. But Brian, I have got a question. I've got loads of questions, but one of the questions I wanted to ask was, you just mentioned Graham Souness a minute ago.
Yeah.
And I'm genuinely interested in kind of what he's like, because how can I put this? He seems very angry, like on Sky a lot, and I do wonder if it's like a character that he's not a character, but like something that he turns up a little bit for his punditry and stuff, because it does make him very compelling to watch. But I kind of wondered if he was like that as a manager and to work with, or what he's like, really.
Yeah, I think if I'm being honest, I mean, I got on with Graham over in Portugal. I think as a man, I found him, very much like a father figure. And the story I'll tell you behind it is that, we went out one time and he said, look, he had this reputation for being, angry, like you said. When he was at Liverpool, I had somebody who played under him, and he had this reputation. Then he had a triple heart bypass, and he said to me, listen, Brian, it's not worth it. You know what I mean? It's not worth it. I'm honest. I'm going to tell you how it is. I'll always tell you how it is. But I'm not going to stress myself out anymore. He said, when I was at Liverpool, it nearly killed me. And I thought after that, you know what? I want to live my life. I want to be happy. And I see that. He's got a lot of charisma, You can see the way he dresses and everything. He's like...
Brian, is that why he went abroad then? To enjoy a different... probably a more chilled out lifestyle and being in the public eye and being in the...
I don't think so. I just think that, he went and played for Sampdoria, didn't he? And...
he went to Galatasaray as well, didn't he? And for me, I look at foreign football, and obviously you'll tell me obviously your thoughts in a minute, but I see the demands of foreign football being probably higher at the time than they were probably in the UK.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, certainly, you kind of like they take everything very personally, and they hang on every word that the fans. And it must be stressful as a manager, especially at a club like Benfica was at the time. But I think that he just reached a place in his life where he just thought, you know what, I'm not going to take it beyond the stress level. If it ever gets too much, I'm just going. But I would say this, if he didn't like you, he didn't like you. You know what I mean?
Well, I think that's opposition players as well, Brian, because you see some of when he used to play for Rangers, some of the tackles. I remember my old man, who's obviously a keen follower on here, and I'm sure he'll be watching, that he told me some of the stories about when he watched him from Middlesbrough, and he said he was a born winner, his tackling, his desire, and I see that as a pundit now, that yes, I do think sometimes that they're told to act in a certain way and things for TV, but as a player, as a manager...
He's not like that. He's very straight, or he was with me, But like I said, if there was, I have heard it from different people that if he didn't like you, or if he had been his bonnet about you, then it would almost be an innocent campaign, and yeah, we had a guy at Benfica called Amaral. And he was a Brazilian international. You probably won't remember him, but he played in the World Club Championships when Man United went. And Amaral was like the most chilled out person. Every day he'd come in with his Walkman, and he'd be listening to the samba music. And I used to look at Graham, and you could just see steam coming out of his ears. He just didn't like him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But you could say that he's, when you talk about his punditry, he gets a lot of stick for the way how his views on Paul Pogba are, for example. He's the one person who really kind of, when you talk about him, it polarizes you when you think about him. but he's probably measuring him by his standards as a midfield player. It's funny, isn't it? All the players, I've mentioned Pogba and Amaral, they were midfield players, and maybe there's an element in there that he's expecting more from these players, and perhaps he doesn't kind of eloquate it the right way as to what what they should be doing for their reputation.
But then that's natural, isn't it? Do you know what I mean?
I'm guessing it's what he wants to see. He wants to see this in a player, so he's expecting to see this in a player, and he's not seeing it, and he's not seeing. Listen, these players, I just mentioned there, Paul Pogba. We're talking about a player now who's got undoubted talent. Who's an absolutely fantastic footballer. He's underachieving. Yeah, but and that's the point he's putting across. But maybe he's not putting across in the best possible way.
However, I put something very quickly to you. Roy Keane says exactly the same about Paul Pogba, but Roy Keane gives him credit when he does play well. Graham Souness, he doesn't give him the credit. He'll still say, "Oh, I want to see more from him," or "I want to see it every week," or whatever it may be. But then it's interesting because obviously, like you've just said there, Brian, it's because they're midfield players that Graham is kind of, he's looking at it from his point of view.
Yeah. Listen, we come from a different era. Now, Roy Keane, Patrick Vieira, Graham Souness, that's what I call a winner.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Those guys, I wish, I played with some great midfield players, but at the time that Patrick Vieira was playing, I didn't think there was anybody better than him. And if I look at Paul Pogba, that's what I expect.
Yeah, he should be that, shouldn't he?
Paul Pogba won't know who Patrick Vieira is, or he knows who he is, but he's never seen him play. Patrick Vieira was a Rolls Royce, and I've said to people, if you had Patrick Vieira, Paul Pogba, and Yaya Toure, what order would you put them in? And most of the people will say Vieira, Toure, and Pogba, and you think, well, everybody's saying these things about Pogba, and for me as well, I look, he's undoubtedly a talent, but I'm waiting for him to go to the next level. Yeah. It's like, what I'm saying is, look, we've had all these results in the Premier League, with players who like Liverpool get beat. What was it? 7-1, 7-2.
7-2.
Man United get beat 6-1. Leicester get turned over at home. Right now, I'm telling you now, the reason why some of those results are going out of the eyes is because some of the players are playing with a lot more freedom, because they're now realizing that not playing with crowds is less stressful. So it tells you where the top 1% are, the ones who can handle everything. All of a sudden, like now, guys are playing with their shackles taken off. Let's see what happens when the crowds come back with some of these players, whether they freeze or not. And the reason why I say that is because I'm not going to lie to you. When I was struggling, there were times in my career when I was struggling for form. And if I was playing behind closed doors, or if I was playing in that situation, it's easier when you make mistakes. Because it doesn't matter. No one's going to be shouting at you in the crowd. No one's going to be getting on your back.
Yeah.
But when you put yourself like a Roy Keane, like a Patrick Vieira, like all of these, the top, I would say the top 1%. Yeah, that you've got that inbuilt. Graham Souness was the same. He won the European Cup. He went to Italy. These guys are winners, and I think that all they actually want is they want to see what the hype is about. And look, I've seen Paul Pogba do some brilliant things. I don't want to hijack the show by saying this, but I'm just trying to give people an understanding of why people expect so much and why they're so critical of these players. It's because
I totally agree, Brian. You don't win the World Cup if you're a bad player. You don't win this, that, whatever. You don't play for the best clubs in the world if you can't perform. So
is the last thing I'd say on Pogba, just to kind of tie it in a bow, is when you talk about the Toures, the Vieiras, and these other players, the reason he gets compared to them is because he has the stature, the physicality, but he has the ability to be all of those players and better, but he doesn't do it. And I think people feel like he's going to be one of those players who never quite kind of reaches what potential he is, because he's undoubtedly got the ability.
Listen, I'll tell you what it is. Look at those three players and one word, tempo, right? Them guys played at a tempo. They controlled the game. You know, the game, this is what they talk about when they talk about the engine, dictate the tempo of the game. Yeah, Vieira, Yaya Toure. It's like sometimes you watch basketball and you see Michael Jordan with like 10 seconds to go and they give him the ball and he needs to get a 2 or a 3 pointer and it slows down and he's dictating. You know what I mean? That's what those guys could do. And, that's what I want to see from... I think Pogba can do it, but I think that mentally, can he, if he had Roy Keane's mentality, then you've got a top player. And I think that's what, people are waiting to see.
Totally agree.
Spot on. So, Brian, just to bring the conversation back to you, we are well into the Premier League era. I think we're like 25, 30 years into the Premier League era. You kicked us off with the first goal of the Premier League era. What does it feel like to be forever etched in history?
It's good. I'm not going to lie. I mean, I hope that I've got the respect from everybody out there for doing it. I mean, I was just doing something that I love doing, and it was in an era when you had a lot of, some of the forwards playing at the time. You got the Alan Shearers, David Hurst, Ian Wright, Les Ferdinand, all these types of people who were out there. And, the first game of the season, it's me. So, yeah, of course it's great. And the funny thing is that I never really thought that much about it until I finished playing. And it seemed to be that's when people really kind of used to remind me all the time that I was the first person. So, it's nice at the beginning of every season and so on.
Does it make it even better, Brian, knowing who it was against, who was in goal? You know what I mean? The magnitude of the games, for example, because obviously Man United is the biggest team in the world. So obviously Peter Schmeichel being a world-class goalkeeper, and obviously his son's still playing now, so there's always a link to the Premier League, and it always seems to come back in a round circles.
Yeah, I suppose so. I mean, Man United won the league that year, and if you look at their team, they had some real winners. All over the park. Up front, Mark Hughes. Andre Kanchelskis on the wing, Ryan Giggs. Midfield, you had Ince, Keane, Pallister. We all know Pally. Steve Bruce.
Steve Bruce, yeah. Dennis Irwin.
Peter Schmeichel was the best goalkeeper in the world at that time. But we knew that by playing them on the first day of the season, we had more chance of winning that game because, you look at Liverpool when they played Leeds United, for example. I mean, I know they got tonked yesterday, but the fact is at the beginning of the season, clubs are still kind of finding their feet. So, I mean, if you look at in the context of it, of course, I'd rather it was against Manchester United than, somebody else, maybe a Coventry or somebody like that. It wouldn't have had the same meaning.
Right, did you play in the game where Tony Yeboah scored that famous volley? Were you still at Leeds then? Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Were you at Leeds? I thought you were. I'm rubbish with dates, so I wasn't sure if it crossed over. What was that like? It's another historic moment, which is, that's been played over and over again, week in, week out.
Listen, Brian, you're going to have to be specific because he scored that many goals that were just on a different level.
Which one was the best, Brian, out of the two? I'll say the Wimbledon one or the Liverpool one.
The Liverpool one, yeah.
If it were me, oh God, I don't know. I mean, the Liverpool one was with wrong foot. And you couldn't catch that if he was left-footed, he probably couldn't. Well, he would have done, but most people couldn't have caught it as sweetly as he did.
No.
But if you look at what he actually did at Wimbledon as well, he's actually shifted it from off his knee onto the other side, and he's hit a half volley. So technically, both of them were just unbelievable strikes. And
was the Liverpool one after the Wimbledon one? Is that right?
I'll tell you now. I got the dates. So the Liverpool one was 95, 96.
Was that the week? Was that a few weeks after though?
The Wimbledon one was a couple of weeks later.
Was it? For me, the Liverpool one, it's iconic because it was a live Sky game. Was it Monday night or something? And it was just
hits the bar
when he did it, and it was just And I think it was the moments in games. It was just brilliant.
Yeah. I mean, he scored a goal against West Ham, which, if they didn't have nets on it, that'd still be travelling now. But one of the other famous goal, the other goal that he scored, which I've never done this before, but when we played Newcastle away and we hit them on the counter attack, and remember Pavel Srnicek came out, God rest his soul, and it went round Pavel, and he ran the ball in like that with his arms up in the air, and I was laughing my head off because it was just so funny. It was like doing a little jig before he put the ball in, because nobody could catch him, So there were so many iconic goals with Tony, and he was a joy to play with, Yeah.
Well, that was going to be one of my questions, Brian. At the time, then when obviously the success that you had at Leeds, and the players what were coming through, was he the best striker that you played with at Leeds, and obviously with him then bringing players in of that kind of calibre, was it a worrying time for you that you were going to play less football if they were bringing in players like that as well?
No, not really. I mean, we changed our formation, and played like we were playing 4-4-2, and then when Tony came, we played a 4-3-3. What happened was I went and played on the left of a three, which was fine by me, because I used to, before I came to Boro, I was pretty quick, just so you know.
So where I got it from.
Yeah. So I'd play on the left of a three, and it worked really well for us, because we had like myself, Tony, Rod Wallace, sometimes Noel Whelan, and then we'd play in the midfield. We had Gary McAllister, Gary Speed, Carlton Palmer, and there was just so much energy and tempo in that side that it didn't. I felt that I was always going to play, because I knew what I brought to the team, so I wasn't. Yeah, I had a few kind of issues with the manager at times, and one time was when we had the cup final, and the week before we played against Everton on the box, and we played a weakened team, and I played in the game, and I remember the manager coming up to me and saying, "Oh, listen, you should be the first name on the team sheet. We got a cup final next week. I haven't decided what the team is yet, but I need a good performance from you, and that'll help to make my mind up." And we played against Everton. I think we drew 2-2, and I scored both the goals and got man of the match. And I didn't play the next game, the cup final, which we lost 3-0. And I knew, strange things happen in football. And I've got a good friend, Tommy Johnson, who played in the game, and he says, Brian, in his Geordie accent, it says, we couldn't believe when you weren't playing, man. Like,
is that ginger hair, Tommy?
Yeah.
Good player. Good player.
And it was really frustrating for me, that, because I knew as soon as I came back in the changing rooms, I knew I wasn't going to be playing, and I knew that he'd already made his mind up. And it's those kind of things are difficult to stomach as a player. But look, it is what it is. I got played a year that year anyway, so You know, and that was
makes up for sometimes. It's just those moments, isn't it, where you know what I mean? And when people ask about it's the best thing in the world being a footballer, it can also be the worst possible time as well, because we spoke about mental health. Obviously in previous shows as well, and I'm not saying you know what I mean, you're mentally unstable because you're not playing, but it affects your mood, it affects the way that you think, it affects you in loads of different ways, and you know what I mean, and as well, being a footballer, if you haven't got a game for another week or two, or international break or something, it can fester on, and it's just it can be a nightmare.
I'll tell you a funny story about that game at Wembley. So we, like I said, we knew what was going on, and in them days you only can't have, I think it was 2 or 3 subs. So anyway, Rod Wallace and Phil Masinga, they were totally bombed and in the stand, and they knew that I was absolutely peed off, you know, because I thought I should have been playing, and Rod actually, again, Rod should have been, you know, there or thereabouts. So anyway, when we went 1-0 up, Savo Milosevic scores a 30-yard strike, and then basically we're getting played off the park. And every time I had to get up and I got told to go warm up, I was furious. You know what I mean? Because I was like, I don't want to be here, because this is just, I felt like this isn't right. But I'd look up in the stand and I'd see Rod and Phil, and they were pissed. So they were like laughing their heads off at me, and you know, you look back at things like that, and I'm glad that happened, because it makes you realise that nothing in life is really that serious. You know, I've got that memory to look back on, and it's made the whole event quite a happy, not a happy time, because we got beat 3-0, and I hate losing, but it made it bearable, the fact that I can look back and I can see Rod. Rod was like, he was lean before the game, you know what I mean? He was like, him and they were steaming. And it was just, you know, that's football. You know, you couldn't get away with it now, but
it was football back then, I tell you.
Yeah.
Which is a good part of it. Brian, you mentioned somebody earlier on. I'd like to touch on him if you don't mind, and that's Gary Speed. And there's been a few people talking about Gary recently, and all good, by the way, because Gary, obviously, I met Gary when his time when he was with Wales and things, and when I was in Cardiff. So obviously they used Cardiff's Ninian Park as a training base when I was in, and I was fortunate enough to meet him and get chatting to him a couple of times, and we're just a genuinely lovely guy, and just you know, I mean, obviously a teammate of yours. So how did what the events affect you personally, and what was you like as a footballer and as a man, more importantly?
So if I say a little bit about Gary, you know, Gary genuinely, he was a brilliant guy, you know, and we used to go out clubbing and drinking, and very, very attractive, handsome guy. You know, he was the kind of guy that, you know, he'd get all the attention, you know what I mean? Because he was a great footballer. Well, everybody just loved him. And Gary's the kind of person who, you know, if he went into a shop and tried on a suit, it'd fit him perfectly. You know what I mean? And I had to get my...
Makes you sick, doesn't it? Makes you sick, doesn't
it? He's like, you know, he could walk into like Hugo Boss or any of those, try on a suit, and it wouldn't need altering or anything. Whereas I was like, you know, 37 inside leg, you know, and like, you know, so like if I get the jacket to fit, I'm going to be 7 foot tall and all the rest of it. But he was just, it was funny. He was, everything about Gary was as you see it. There's no, you know, it was no bull behind the scenes or anything. It was funny. We had some great times at the end of the season in Marbella. You know, like the team bonding at the end of the season, and on the pitch as well. You know, it was a little bit unique at that time because he was so good in the air. He was technically very good. I mean, you saw up in the northeast at Newcastle, he was phenomenal.
Yeah, he was excellent. Yeah,
he went to Everton and did well. At Leeds, he was brilliant. So it was really sad. I think it hit a lot of us because we don't know what caused Gary to take his life, but when you finish playing football, it leaves a real gap in your life. And, you know, I managed for 2 years, and you get a similar kind of rush, but you can't beat playing. And,
No.
you know, we have different challenges when we finish playing football. And one of the things that I'm very aware of now, one of the things that myself and our business model that I'm involved in is about plugging the gaps that we never had when we were playing. You know, in terms of making the transition from sport into business, for example, and when do you start preparing? How do you look after your money? You know, are you making sure that you're accountable for everything? These are the duties of the likes of us to pass down to the next generation and say, listen, you need to be accountable. Do not rely on anybody else to look after what you're doing, because at the end of the day, like me or like anybody else, the older you get, the less the phone rings.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Totally agree. But then it's like you said earlier, brother, wasn't it? You know, that you're a long time retired, and you just mentioned there, you know what I mean? And I've been quite critical on here about the PFA, because you know that when I left, when I packed in football, I was probably 6 months, 9 months to a year lost. You know what I mean? Some really crazy stuff was happening in my life, and I'll be honest, it wasn't looking I wasn't in a good place, and I wasn't looking in the right avenues, and then all of a sudden, by an accident, I ended up being involved with some of the guys there, and you know what I mean. But I've elapsed all that time, and some people weren't as lucky as I was that that played as long as I had, and some people weren't as lucky that they had a loving family like I had at the time, and you know what I mean. And listen, we've lost a good friend of this show this year for somebody who took his own life, and you know what I mean. And because people look from the outside in and think that everything's rosy. Yeah, Chris Barker. Yeah, he played for Cardiff with me, and he was one of the coaches at Forest Green. So from the outside looking in, he everyone thought he was happy. He was content. He'd had a great career. He was straight into coaching. And
when you listen, let me say this, right, and people out there won't realise this, but when you finish playing, or when you are an ex-player, the problem you have is that when you leave your house, you put that smile on, you put that veneer on for everybody to look at, and you're out there, and everybody thinks everything's fine, and then you come back home, and it's it's a dark place sometimes, and that's because you know I feel that there needs to be more accountability from, you know, you've got kids now 20 years old earning more money than players in their prime playing for England back in our day.
Yeah,
don't
totally
know
agree.
the value of money. You know, don't know. You know, everything's done for people, and you know, it's a duty not just to keep pressing them forward with all of it. You have to make them understand what the value of X, Y, or Z is. Your duty to the community. You know, all of these things, they're all being lost. We're not making rounded human beings in football. We're not making rounded members of society, because we're putting people in bubbles, and then when they chuck them out at 35, there's no foundation.
Totally agree. But
this is what we have to, you know, people have to address it. And like you say, look, I'm not going to come on here right now because we all know. I know where you're coming at with the statement that you made earlier, and I think that I'd say a good 80-90% of people who have played the game will agree with what you've said. We need accountability. We need transparency in the game. You know, all these things. You know, football is a big enough community to be able to look after itself. You know, but are we doing it, or are we just ticking boxes and making the token gestures where you know we talk about the funding and all these things that we should be going out there into clubs and looking after players and making sure that they're rounded people who can fit into society. You know,
I totally agree, because it's not just it's absolutely perfect, mate. It's an area that we've touched on previously. It's obviously a passion of mine because of the position I've been in and other people, and obviously with what happened this year. And I see it on a daily basis, Brian. When you were a player, that everyone sees this being a footballer lifestyle of you go to training at 9 o'clock and you be home by lunchtime, and people see that as a good thing. That can also be a bad thing, by the way, because you've got loads of time on your hands, which then is the thinking time. If you're on your own and you haven't got your family with you, or you're in a hotel on your own, because you spend a lot of time thinking about and listening to your own voice or in your own company, and it can be dangerous.
Look, it's exactly that, and in some ways you have a club that has to focus on winning, which is fine, but I've been a manager as well, and I do know that if you make more rounded people, you get better results. You get better, no doubt. People grow up, they're mature, they're more responsible. How you can't, like I said, we have to teach the players what their responsibilities are to themselves. And I just, as somebody who's kind of gone through it or looked from the outside, I'm wondering what people are doing. But, 30 years, it's like, if I was a horse, I'd be in a glue factory now. You know what I mean? Because, it's like, you have, there are better people than me out there who have got a lot of experience, who don't, people don't take it on board, clubs don't take it on board.
Yeah.
Because there's a real protection mechanism in there that doesn't serve the whole of the club properly.
Yeah, I totally agree in it. And this is something, it's an area which has got to improve. It's got to facilitate individuals, players, people, because that's what they are. They're not a number, they're not a figure. They're a person, they're a real human being. And, for me, they've got to be treated like that instead of, like you say, just somebody else. Right, an area that I want to focus on, and that's obviously playing for the national team. Obviously, you played for England 3 times. You played for England B 3 times. Were you disappointed that you didn't play more games for the national team, or think you deserved to play? Because in one breath, you mentioned some of the strikers that the Premier League had at the time, and they were different class. But you know what I mean, that your own reputation speaks for itself as well, and your own record speaks for itself as well. So did you deserve more opportunities at that level?
That's a difficult one, because I think
I'll answer it if you want.
Well, no, let me, because I think I could have been a better player. That's just my opinion. I had a lot of ability, but there were times where I needed a mentor, and I spoke to my ex-manager at Doncaster the other day, Dave Cusack, I'll share a story with you in that when Dave was my manager at Doncaster, he was there was 3 young lads in the team, and we used to, at the end of a game, if we'd lost, we'd think, right, who's going to get it today? You know what I mean? so we're going to change the rules. It was like, sometimes it was Paul Holmes, sometimes it was Sean Joyce. And we played Mansfield this one day and we lost 1-0. Came in at full time and he absolutely tore into me, and I've done all right. You know what I mean? And I thought, afterwards, I was nearly in tears, and I thought, no, I need to go see him, because it don't look as though I'm good enough to be a professional footballer. And so I went to him. I said, listen, boss, I don't know what you want from me. I'm not sure if I'm what you need. And he said, listen, Brian, he said, after the game, George Foster, who was a manager at Mansfield at the time, he says, George said, how much do you want for the centre forward? And he said, you can't have him. He says, he's going to the top. And I was a bit like miffed. I said, well, why are you treating me like this? And he said, Brian, I'm preparing you for what's to come. You know, you're going to need to be tough, you know, because there's a lot of things going on now. That was in 1986, 1987. And he's like, Brian, you're going to have to prepare yourself to, you know, you're going to have to be resilient and tough out there. So I kind of got it after that. You know what I mean? I kind of thought, okay, well, and he basically said, look, Brian, I'm preparing you for the future. And, you know, Dave, when he got the sack, you know, we kept in touch. He actually helped me he made some phone calls for me because I turned my contract down at Doncaster. They offered me a really poor contract. And I said, I had to, in them days, you had to reject it by a letter. So I rejected it by letter, and I spoke to Dave, and I said, Dave, can you help me? And he says, well, where do you see yourself? I says, well, I know I can score goals in this team because it was League One, and I was 18 at the time. I was 19, 20 at the time. I scored 10 goals. We only scored 40 goals that season. So he made some phone calls for me. So I spoke to John Rudge, who was at Port Vale. They'd just been relegated. And Sheffield United, Dave Bassett. And spoke to Dave. And Dave said, right, come in and, you know, for talks. Anyway, I ended up signing, rest is history and that. But the thing was that there were times in my career where I didn't have that belief in myself. And the times, for example, when I was down in England, and it was very cliquey. You know, you'd have 5 or 6 players from Arsenal, 5 from Man United, 1 from Man City. You know, and like it was really cliquey. You know what I mean? And like literally, you'd train, have your dinner, and then for people like myself, I'd just go up to my room because nobody mixed. You know, you'd see people, you'd play with them, but it was horrible. And I thought, I don't like this. You know what I mean? Nobody was kind of, you know, we were just young guys. And if you're in, you're in. If you're not in, you're not in. And I was at a small club, so I had an issue with believing how good I was. And I remember my brother. We met Pally in Marbella one year, and Pally said to my brother Tony, says, I don't think your brother realises how good he is. And Tony told me, he said, Brian, you know, you've got this doubt about your ability, but I don't think you realise what these people who play against you think. And it never really dropped in. And you know, so that was at England, and I was involved in a lot of the squads, but I never felt like I was good enough to break through, even though I was scoring goals. You know, it was just how I was. So anyway, I spoke to Dave recently because Dave's suffering from vascular dementia, and it made me realise. Because he was one of them, he didn't give a damn about anybody, and it made me realise that if I'd have had somebody like him, give him, you know, from a professional, he's not my brother, but somebody who actually was playing in the game, telling me how good I was, I would have not given a damn about what people were saying. I would have smashed it, but I didn't, and.
But I think, it's only a natural thing to do though, because. I think because being a footballer, you've got your own little bubble to think about, and then you see other people and you try to emulate other people. You know what I mean? Especially being a centre forward, you judge yourself on goals. You see what someone else is doing. You know what I mean? When I was coming through, it was a similar thing that people comparing me to Michael Owen, and so unfair because you know what I mean, I played in the same team as Michael and for a national team, and it was so. You know what I mean? Chalk and cheese. I seen how good he was, but then when you're getting compared to him and you're not really getting to the same standard, I was nowhere near the kind of ability he had.
Yeah, but Andy, again, like if you'd have had somebody who had been there, seen it, done it, and was that calming father figure.
Yeah.
To say, look, okay, you might not be Michael Owen, but these are your attributes.
Yeah, I totally agree.
You would have taken that on. But
totally
the
agree.
problem we have in clubs a lot of the time is that, there's a wall, and where they should be having mentors of players and all the rest of it, it's quite a controlling environment, and I understand it, but if you don't step over the boundaries and you get to know players, these are the roles, because there are players out there who played 500-600 games for clubs. They're no players. I remember one time when I was at Boro and we played Ipswich, and I got a knock on my head. I got a bang on my head, and I thought, and I'd not scored for about 3 or 4 games, and I in that instance I was like, do you want to come off or do you want to carry on? And I came off, and I'm ashamed to say that it was because I'd lacked the minerals. I just thought, this is an excuse to get me off the pitch. You know what I mean? And there was a couple of things, and that's one of the things I regret. But I realise now, because I went into management, that you can't. The managers, you can't hide. If you played the game, you know when somebody is playing at it and when they're not. And I cringe, because to play under Brian Robson, and I did get a bang on my head. Could I have played on? Probably could have done. It might have been dangerous for me to play on, but when you played the game, you've had every single emotion in the game, and unfortunately, we don't have enough support mechanisms around players at clubs with these kind of experiences in mentoring and all the rest of them to help with players. But look, football's looked on as a financial model. It's not looked on as a real kind of pillar of the community as it should be, really.
Yeah, I totally agree. Totally agree.
Okay, Bright. Just to quickly finish you off, I'm going to pick 2 questions from the live chat because I know you've got to go. So we'll go with Leslie Coates says, what's your favourite teammate at Middlesbrough? Or who was your favourite teammate at Middlesbrough? Don't say Campbell.
No, Dean Gordon.
Cracking.
We used to, me and him
like thick as thieves, them two. Thick as thieves.
Yeah, we were. You know what? I'll tell you a funny story. So when I went to West Ham, have you ever come across Kevin Orlock?
Yeah.
Oh, he's so funny, isn't he?
Yeah, top man. He's a top fellow as well.
Yeah. So me and him, we used to get on like a house on fire. He's one of the funniest guys I've ever met. But he used to call me a stretched Dean Gordon. So me and Dino used to have fun. I mean, we're supposed to be playing golf tomorrow, and I've not seen him for a while. But we just we got on. We used to like the same things, cars, and my gear was always better than his. I don't think you've seen his gear, but it's funny because when we have a joke, it's like we talk about our cars. So I'm a little bit larger than he is, but he always says, Dino, I seen a 2012 BMW with walnut on the steering wheel. I think that'd be perfect for you. You know what I mean? That's his session.
Bear in mind, Brian, when we get Dino on the show, because he's on the list, when we get him on the show, we'll have to ask him the same question that you just said about having his gear.
Yeah, and I'm always telling him about because he likes. Look, I like sports cars. He likes sports cars, but he seems to think I'm an old man when it comes to this. And I'm always telling him about the fact that he likes to have his cars lowered, like he wants to be on the front cover of Max Power. So so we have some good banter.
Like it.
Great stuff, Brian. I appreciate your time so much.
Yeah,
it's been
really
absolutely fascinating listening to you, and I really appreciate your time. Thank you for joining us.
I tell you what. I've got 10 minutes left if you want.
Oh, come on then. We'll get some more questions from the
because there's
thing.
Loads of questions in the live chat.
Get some more questions.
So Stuart Campbell, a certain Mr. Campbell's father, says, which manager or coach did you learn the most from?
His questions are getting better, by the way. His questions were awful about 70 shows ago. His questions are getting better.
Just hope it's not like your banter on a night out.
I wasn't sober enough, mate, I tell you.
So it's different for different reasons. I mean, I learnt a lot when I was coming to the end of my career from Alan Pardew. And the reason why that was because I was an old pro going at West Ham. And the way how he managed me, I didn't realise until I actually went into management how hard it is to manage players, and especially older players, you know. And if it wasn't for Alan Pardew, I probably wouldn't have thought about going into management, because he was the only manager that I had that actually encouraged me to go into management. He says, listen, Brian, intelligent guy, I think you'd be a good manager. And at the time, he was releasing me. Yeah. So I was like, you just, can I swear? I'm not going to swear on here, but I was thinking to myself, you're just telling me that because you want to, you know, you want me to feel good about myself. And so I went out. He actually gave me some paperwork about, you know, going into coaching, managing, you know, doing management diploma and all of that. And it was obviously based on some of the things that he'd seen me get involved in the changing rooms with the younger players and all the rest of it. And I remember before I went out to Sarpsborg to manage out there, I went to see him at, because he was a manager of Newcastle at the time. And I'll never forget that because, you know, he wasn't the most popular with everybody, but, you know, you have to survive as a manager. You can't be anybody's friend. You have to be aloof. And that was just his management style. Now, I don't know Alan as a person, but I learned so much from that experience, you know, about how his teamwork was. You know, Dave Bassett was brilliant when it came to teamwork and siege mentalities. But in terms of getting people up just before the game, I learned something from Alan Pardew that I wouldn't have done. And what that was we played against Sunderland when I was at West Ham, and he dropped me for the game, and I was absolutely fuming. I tell you, you know, you talk about angry. I wanted to kill everybody, and I was capable at that time, you know. We were losing 2-0 at half time, and Jermaine Defoe's playing up front with Marlon, and you know. But when you get when you get to that era in your life, you want to play every minute of every game, and you know, we were 2-0 down at half time, and he put me on at half time, and we won the game 3-2. And basically, I went on and I just caused chaos for 45 minutes. And, you know, after the game, everybody's coming in, and he sat everybody down and says, listen, he says, I said, there's one guy in the changing rooms who, you know, I know he's not happy. I know but he's been very professional. He's come on, and he's the reason why you've won the game today. And he said, you know, and he turned to me and he said, look, I thought magnificent. He said, I want everybody to give him a round of applause. So all the players started clapping me, you know, and it was one of them strange moments in my career where I wanted to kill somebody, but at the same time I was overcome with emotion. And, you know, it was just a perfect moment that made me realise that I had the respect, but I couldn't. It kind of killed me with kindness, if you get what I mean. But it was perfect management. You know?
But you said earlier, Brian, you said that he wasn't everyone's cup of tea. But do you think he doesn't get the respect and the praise that he deserves at certain clubs? Because you mentioned West Ham, and obviously we got a lot of West Ham followers, by the way, who watch this show. And obviously they haven't been inundated over the last probably decade with managers who they've loved. So you know what I mean. Sometimes you don't, you know what I mean. Don't wish for something that you want rid of. Sometimes you know what I mean. That I don't think he probably did get the credit he deserved, because he had a relatively good bit of success at West Ham.
Listen, I'll tell you now. Like, the football we played down there was fantastic. He was building the kind of players he recruited, and this, I've got a beef about recruitment in clubs, because sometimes recruitment departments work. Because I'll give you an example. So you look at a team like Manchester United, and they buy Romelu Lukaku, right? You look at how Romelu Lukaku has been successful as a player. He plays on the shoulder. He plays, he gets in a race, yeah? And that's where he's dangerous. Look up when he's running the length of the pitch, setting up goals and everything. You buy him at Manchester United and you play him with his back to goal. Yeah. Now, I know as a centre forward and as a coach, the only way he's going to be, what's the word? Sorry, it's the only way he's going to be effective is if he's on the half turn and running at people.
Totally agree.
100%.
And you've got to buy play. If you invest £70 million on a centre forward, what are you doing with the rest? What squad are you putting together to make him into £100 million player?
You've also got to play it with his strengths as well, though, Brian, haven't you? You know what I mean? Because you just said there, you know what I mean. Look at
we talked about
Chelsea,
lately, haven't we?
When he was at Chelsea, when he was at West Brom, when he was at Everton. Yeah. You know what I mean? The teams he's played to his strengths. He scored goals. Inter Milan now he's scoring goals.
So that's what I'm saying. So the point is, I'm like, for me, I'm going to take a bit of a. I think what clubs need to do is they need to decide on an identity, and that identity needs to be club owned, right? So what I mean by that is, this is how we play. This is, the fans buy into it. This is what the fans want to see. Yeah? Look at Sheffield United, right? That's their identity. Look at Leeds United. That's their identity, right? The identity now is club owned. That's what they expect from this point forward. So when you bring somebody in the head coaching role, you don't allow, very few coaches for me should be able to dictate how a club is how the team performs and how they perform, what the recruits should be. Those are super coaches. The rest of them, you should be brought in to deliver the message. You should be brought in to deliver what the fans want. And if the fans want fast attacking football, then you interview people who can bring that to you with a strategy. It might be that, okay, we're going to play, we want quick wingers. We want one quick winger. We're going to play possession football, whatever it like. But it's got to be club owned, because that's why a lot of fans end up being disenfranchised, because they're thinking, what am I watching? What can I, when this game finishes and we've lost, that's my weekend gone. Can't get it back. So I'm going to be miserable for the rest of the weekend. Just a thought. But I see it all the time, and I'm like, I can't believe what I'm seeing, and I've stopped talking about it on, because I think everybody's an expert now.
Well, Brian, Romelu Lukaku has scored 26 goals in 39 games for Inter Milan. He scored 53 and 110 for Everton, and he still scored 28 and 66 for United. The man will score goals, but the difference between what Everton and Inter Milan are doing and what Man United did with him is they're playing to his strengths, in that they're putting the ball in the areas where he's going to do the most damage. And when you do that, he's almost unplayable. Inter Milan signed Ashley Young specifically to put the ball in the areas for Lukaku, because you can't tell me that they were looking at Ashley Young as a potential signing before that. In my opinion, I might be wrong, but that seems to have been their aim, and they've worked out well for them.
I mean, we could have picked on any player, but that's the one that stands out. There are other players who you might spend 40, 50 million on, and you think, well, what's the strategy behind this player? How do we play to his strengths? You know, so many players become depreciating assets. I mean, which other industry do you know where you can spend 50 million on a player and then lose the value in 3 years comes down to 15 million? That's not sustainable. But we allow it to happen. There's no accountability.
Totally agree.
Spot on.
Totally agree.
Spot on. What else we got? We got a few questions. Let's have a look. I'm just going to pick a random one.
Pick last one, yeah.
So let's just go with the last one. Who's the best player that you played with?
That's
Great
a difficult one.
It's a great question, though.
I can't. Well, I'll mention some of the players I played with first. So obviously Tony Yeboah, Juninho, Alan Boksic, Joao Pinto, Nuno Gomez.
Scary, that, isn't it? That's scary.
So it's difficult. It's really difficult because all of those players are world-class players, and you know, the two guys up front, Yeboah and Boksic, were they're on a different level. You know, you look at that. I would put them both on the same level over the years as Ibrahimovic, as Cavani. Cavani's a very good player, by the way. I don't know what he's like now at his age, but fantastic player. I'd say it's difficult to compare with the likes of Ronaldo because I think him and Messi are on a different level and have been for a number of years. So, but those kind of players, Juninho as well. I mean, I played in his when he made his debut for Boro, and you know, I just remember him picking up the ball from the centre backs and just running all the way through, and you couldn't catch him. We tried to put John Pemberton on him, who was very quick, but he couldn't catch Juninho. And when Juninho had the ball, he's just phenomenal. So there's a number of players, and I mean, when I was out in Benfica, Nuno Gomez, you know, I think he's probably the second, or as Cristiano Ronaldo, Pauletta, and Nuno. I don't know if Nuno's 2 or 3, but when I was at Benfica with Nuno, I mean, he was just frightening in front of goal. And playing with a forward, when you go to a different country and you're playing in front of 60,000 people, and you know, if you don't score for Benfica after 20 minutes, the white handkerchiefs come out and the crowd are happy, and then all of a sudden Nuno Gomez pitches up with a goal. You know, it's you know, it just calms everybody down. He was a brilliant striker. Honestly, really was. You know,
pure class.
Rod Wallace
Superb.
at Leeds. You know,
Underrated.
Yeah, you know. So I've been fortunate to play with some really good players, and you know, I think that what gives me comfort is I played with those players, so I couldn't have been a bad player.
Totally agree. And for me, Brian, and I think that's probably that is the perfect way for me to finish. That is basically my point for you, and I think sometimes when you talk about your own career, you don't give yourself enough credit. And I'll go back to the intro that we give you. You've just answered your own point that you're that kind of player because you've mixed with those players, and rightly so, because somebody or some people or some managers or some clubs thought that you'd fit in, and you did fit in, and more.
Yeah, I'll
Spot
take
on.
that.
Couldn't
So
have said it better myself.
we started and ended in the same manner. I like
Indeed. Brian, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah,
my friend. It
been
really,
amazing.
really has.
Thanks for coming
And,
on, Brian.
You are most definitely welcome back anytime.
Totally agree.
Cheers, Brian.
Cool. All right.
Thank you,
guys.
my friend.
Nice seeing you. Yeah.
Cheers, Brian. Take
Yeah,
care.
man.
Stay safe, right?
And you. Take care.
Cheers,
See you,
Brian.
mate.
Bye. Bye.
And that was Brian
Enjoyed
Deane.
that. I enjoyed that. I tell you
Another
what.
Conversations with a Legend, mate. Need to change the name of the show, or I'd create a tagline.
Yeah,
Conversations with Legends.
Enjoyed that.
Right, let's have a little chat then, mate. We haven't had a chat, just me and you, without it being championship based for a while.
Not on live, no. So if anybody wants to ask a question as well, by the way, feel free. We've got we'll have another 10 minutes or so.
Yeah, we've got 10 minutes or so.
Yeah,
why not?
Throw a question into
I got some questions for you.
Go on.
If Anthony Martial was sent off for slapping what's his face?
It wasn't a slap. It was like a bitch slap.
Torval Deane in the face. He slapped him in the face. Rightly so. If you do that in this day and age, you slap someone like that, you got to go. It's petulant. It's stupid. But surely, it was Lamella. He's got to go with VAR. When you've got video technology, surely he has to go for sticking his elbow in Martial's face. Otherwise, what is the point?
I was annoyed, Si, yesterday, and I'll tell obviously the listeners and the viewers why I was annoyed. I missed the best game of football, I think, of the season. I decided to go for a run. So I missed the first half, and I came back to a message from you to say red card, blah blah blah, this, that, whatever, and missed half-time highlights, so I had to wait till the end of the game. And when I seen it, I was even more annoyed, and I was more annoyed with how Lamella reacted, because, listen, we've had incidents where we've come across something what hurts, and if that's how you react, then he doesn't deserve to be a footballer, because he's intentionally got somebody sent off by his reaction. You know what I mean? Would he have got sent off if he didn't react like that? Possibly. But listen, we're all adults here, and we're all grown men. You know what I mean? Or they were on Saturday, or they're supposed to be on Sunday. And he acted like a petulant child who rolling around on the floor trying to get somebody sent off. And I'm hoping that retrospectively, they can punish him for what he did as well. Because for me, would the game have been different? Yeah, the score would have been a little bit different. I do believe Tottenham were far superior on the day and blew them away. So I don't think the result would have been affected.
Change,
I think Spurs would have still won the game, but I just think for me, you know what I mean, it wasn't a major incident for me.
No.
They could have just both manned up a little bit and just got on with it and just both stayed on the pitch. But because of reaction.
But here's my point with it, right? Just very quickly, and I said this to you before the show, is if now what Solskjaer will do, because they analyse everything, is he tells Martial next time that happens, go down. And then that's where we end up with players diving all the time and falling down and doing that sort of thing. Yeah. Because when they don't go down, VAR or the referees, they don't pick it up. They don't penalise the things. So if you're going to send someone off for a stupid little slap, you've got to send them off for the elbow as well. Here's a question. James Costy, I'm going to amend his question slightly. If you could both choose 3 famous people, alive or dead, from any era, he says for a dinner party, who would you pick? But I'm going to say, pick 3 famous or 3 people, alive or dead, to have as a guest on a podcast. So I'll let you go first, mate.
Michael Jackson. I'm a huge Michael Jackson fan. Absolutely loved him. Yeah, I just loved just to pick his brains and just listen to his songs and just to sit and have a chat with him. You know, I'm quite a bit of a geek when it comes to old music, because my mum and dad brought me up on quite old school music. So I'll have another musician as well, and I'll go Lionel Richie, just because I just love his music. I just think he's iconic. He's a hero.
Hello.
Yeah, and I've got to throw a football hero in as well. So I'm gonna go Gary Lineker, because I looked up to Gary Lineker when just basically FA Cup finals, like Bryce said, World Cup finals, just how iconic he was, and then obviously to still be able to see him every week, every day, watching sports programs and stuff is brilliant, because it keeps your memories alive from when you were a childhood, and just keeps things relevant and alive for me, which is refreshing.
Yeah, so I'm finding it very difficult to separate my 3. So from a musical point of view, I would like to either Liam Gallagher or Jim Morrison. Then I would go football-wise, I'd like Sir Alex or Brian Clough. And then my 3rd one would be a round table of Rodri and Ryan Giggs. No, I wouldn't. But I'd probably like to get Gaza on. He'd be a good one. Or
Yeah, he would.
actually, no, I take it all back. I'd like to have Ricky Gervais.
how many have
Ricky
you picked?
Gervais or
How many have you
Frankie
picked?
Boyle. I
How many have
find
you
it
picked?
difficult to separate them. Frankie Boyle would be an interesting one.
25 people.
Yeah, I can't choose. It's a good question though. With a bit more thought, I'm sure I could have come up with some better. But what else we got? Your dad asked us, why are there so many strange results in the Premier League? So in my opinion, it's because there's no fans, and just the situation generally is making it harder for players to treat it as, like you've mentioned the Pontins League when you've talked about it. I do believe that that's an issue, that players are finding it hard to get up for it or to concentrate or focus. What do you think?
I think players aren't scared to make a mistake, and I think that's a similar point what you just made, really. But I think players are playing with no fear, but I mean fear in a bad way. That if they made a mistake, I don't think they'll make the same mistake again because supporters are there giving them grief, or wanting them not to make the same mistake again. Where I'll use him as an example from yesterday. Joe Gomez. I thought Joe Gomez yesterday was just out of this world. As in, I've never seen a performance like it for a long time. And we're on about an England international defender here who's the next big thing, and if he plays like that again, then he shouldn't be anywhere near the Liverpool side. He certainly shouldn't be anywhere near the England squad.
Spot on, mate. Like, I know people like to slate like Harry Maguire, and rightly so to a certain degree. But last year he was pretty good for United. He just looked like he needed a partner so that he could play on his preferred side, and he was certainly very good for England. All of a sudden now, he looks like, if I was the Manchester United manager now, and I had the choice to pick that team, number one, I'd play three at the back with Luke Shaw in there, but I'd have Eric Bailly and Lindelof with Shaw, or one of the youngsters. Harry Maguire would be the one I would drop, because he has been absolute rubbish, and I don't know whether it's something to do with what's happened in the summer and his confidence is just gone, where he's made a few mistakes. But he just looks generally dreadful, and I hope not having that at all. What else we got? Oh, what a question this is. Gaz asks, what's your long-term ambitions for the show, lads, and Si for the channel?
Who's going first?
Go on, we'll talk about the show first.
Listen. First and foremost, I would like to thank every single person who's watching right now, because if it wasn't for you guys, this would not be where it currently is. This started off with a dream, an opportunity to do something that we both enjoy doing. We was talking about the Championship show. Lockdown, stroke COVID-19 has turned up to be a blessing in disguise for this live show on a Monday, and it's given us an opportunity and people a platform to talk about football and something that I think everybody really enjoys doing. You know what I mean? We've got some good ideas. We've had some good ideas. We've got some future ideas to push it forward to another level. And I would like to explore where that would go. Listen, I would love it to be on a bigger platform, but the only way that's going to be is if that's kept together, because for me it's about chemistry as well, Si. That we get on, and this sounds like quite corny in football terms, but on and off the pitch, you know what I mean, that it's not just that you don't just put an act on, we don't just rock up on a Monday night and Friday night and just wing it together. There's planning what goes on behind the scenes. There's research, which I'm guessing everybody knows. We don't just turn up and make it up. The questions that we get from you as viewers are amazing, because a lot of the time there's some of the questions which we'd not seen and we'd forgotten about, and it's amazing, and it just gives us an opportunity to basically. I'm living a dream, and I'll be honest, I'm living a dream talking to people that I classed as heroes to me, teammates, but heroes, people that I probably didn't respect as much playing with them and playing against them than I do right now as an ex-player, and that gives me even more happiness that I can share my experiences and everyone else's experiences and be as close to them on the screen, because you know what I mean, it's not like that you're in the same room as them, you can shake hands and have a bit of banter, but it's the next best thing, and it's amazing.
Yeah, spot on, mate. I couldn't have said it better myself. Obviously, like, we talk every day. We talk about this, we talk about other stuff, we go through stuff. I bounce pretty much every idea I have for other shows and series. I usually put them through you along the way because I value your opinion, and you'll tell me whether it's good, bad, or not sure. In terms of ambitions for the show, like, don't think I've made any secret of it that I'd like to, I'd like it to grow and grow and grow, and then see what is, what opportunities are on offer. At the end of the day, what those opportunities will only come if we keep doing what we're doing, we keep growing. But it's also important to me, and I know it's important to you, that we don't lose what we've got in terms of our relationship with our viewers and the people who watch and ask questions and message us throughout the week and all this sort of stuff. So that's important. Whether that would take us to radio or TV, whatever it may be. Or I'm also very happy to do this week in, week out, and just keep speaking to, legends of the game, interesting people.
And the good thing about it, Si, isn't it? And I was talking about this with my dad and other people, that the good thing about having current ex-players on is it's endless, because every year there's probably 200 more players coming through. So there's 200 ex-players going out the game. So it's a revolving door, so to speak. Managers, coaches, supporters, women, footballers. That my phone, social media, contact list is out of this world because of this show, and it's helped confidence. It's helped. It's given me, for me, Si, I'll be honest. It's given me my love back for football. I think I'd probably lost. I've never hidden it. After losing my job within football, I'd lost a little bit of love, a little bit of confidence in my ability, but it probably wasn't in terms of my own ability. It was something, I was doing something that I didn't really want to do, and I didn't really enjoy doing it at the time, whereas my passion is talking about football and being involved in football, but being involved in my terms and not being involved in someone else's terms. So, I'm quite content and happy, that we did one show, which was amazing. We then carried that one show over, but changed the direction of it. And then we decided to continue with the old show, condense it, but make it fresher and more interesting, in my opinion. And for me, both shows work really, really well. They're both married together really well. They're both completely different. But the research what goes into both shows is so different and refreshing. But it's never ending. It is, but it's good that it's when the timing of them. But no, that's really good. And it was a great question, by the way.
It was a great question. Yeah, and just to finish off on that, I'll say the one benefit that we have now is that obviously the channel, the show, me and Andy own 50-50. The channel I own. So we're very much in control of everything. We have support from Black Diamond Sports, and we have obviously sponsor and stuff like that. But ultimately, we're in control of what's said. We will always give honest opinions. Sometimes people don't always agree. Sometimes people don't always like our opinions. But they're our opinions, and we'll give them honestly at all times. And also, I'd just like to say, because he did ask in the question about the channel. In terms of the channel, I just want it to grow. It started off as a hobby project to enable me to start podcasting, to help my own mental health. It's kind of grown into something way, way beyond what I thought it was going to be. And I hope that it continues growing. At 9:30 tonight on YouTube, 9:40 tonight on Facebook, I'm dropping a trailer for a new series, which is Mental Health in Sport. I'll tell you that much. And it's just a trailer for the first 3 episodes. And that is a series which is something I've worked really hard on. I'm very, very proud of. Talking to current and ex-footballers about their issues with addiction, mental health, PTSD and stuff like this. And you'll see some of these guys in a light that you've never seen before. It's just something which I've wanted to do from the start of the channel, which was mental health stuff, something I'm passionate about. So we'll see. But ultimately, we want to keep growing everything, and the way for us to do that is for you guys to spread the word, share, because that's the quickest way for us to grow. So tell everyone. But in the meantime, let's get some more questions on the go. Sure, I saw another question or two there. I'm still looking for questions now. It's just comments. It's difficult to fish them out. We had that one. What did Donna ask? Who's going to win on Thursday? Wales or England? Wales. No, I didn't even know they were playing.
Is it a friendly?
No idea. I didn't even know they were playing. I lost a lot of time for international football, like the Euros and stuff like that. I care about, but like,
is it at Wembley? Have I missed something? It must be at Wembley. Is it Wembley?
Check,
A game of that magnitude between two home nation teams behind closed doors for me is a pointless exercise. I just don't get it. I get that there's an international break and
friendly, yeah.
They want games, but I don't know. Is it England? I can only go on England's because obviously I know England's squad, and he's picked 30 players and he's got 3 games and he's going to rotate the games. So, what am I going to learn from 3 games? If they win all 3, am I going to think they're going to win the World Cup? No. If they lose all 3, do I think Gareth Southgate needs to lose his job? No. For me, it doesn't work. For me, I'm a big advocate of these games, but play Brazil.
Yeah.
Play Brazil, play Argentina.
Test yourself.
England's best 11 against Messi, etc., and see how you get on. Because they're
same for Wales
the level,
as well, mate.
Exactly, and that's the level that you want to see your country at, and where you are. Because you know what I mean. I don't see the relevance in 3 games. You know what I mean. If it's just a game against England Wales, get it done. Play your best teams. England's best 11 against Wales' best 11, then we'll have an idea. But unless that's happening, I don't think it will, then we'll never know. Spot
on. Gavin Randall, I'm not sure what this question means, so get back to me and I'll ask it. Excuse me, sorry. Geraint Cole asks, is that bottle above your head full or empty?
Say that again, Si.
Is the bottle above your head full or empty?
Full.
Never been opened.
Should be 2. Yeah, there's 2. So one was there's 3. So one's in where am I? One's in a wooden box. The one's a player of the month, and the one which you can just see that one. That was given by Alistair Brownlee. Alistair Brownlee did the radio for Middlesbrough Football Club games live on radio.
Oh, the runner.
No.
Oh, right, okay.
Him and Bernie Slavin used to do the Middlesbrough games, and Alistair was a good friend of mine. And he gave me man of the match in one of my first Premier League games. So I kept it forever and ever and ever. And there was a couple of times that he nearly got drunk around Christmas time or some daft parties. But Alistair lost his life. I think it was about 3 or 4 years ago. So for that reason, it will never be opened by me.
Okay. James Costley says, other than Messi or Ronaldo, who's the 3rd best player in the world right now, unless you think they're better than Messi or Ronaldo? For me, he says it's KDB.
Yeah, it's got to be Kevin De Bruyne or Mbappe for me. You know what I mean? Mbappe's had injury problems. On his day, he's the best player. You know what I mean? For me, he's up there with those 2. But it's my problem I've got with Mbappe is where he's playing. That Paris Saint-Germain, you know what I mean, unless they're doing well in the Champions League, he's not really getting tested week in, week out. He'd suit the Premier League, especially with the defending at the minute. He would eat teams alive. If Ollie Watkins is scoring a hat-trick, for example, that Mbappe would clean up. But I just look at other players, Ronaldo, for example, who've tested themselves in the Premier League. Van Nistelrooy's, Cavani's coming over. That one day, I'd like to see the best players in the world all performing week in, week out in England. But I don't think that will ever happen, though.
No, a lot of them seem to come over towards the kind of end of their career. Like people comparing Cavani signing for United on a free to like Sanchez, Di Maria, Falcao. I think it's different in that he's 33. He's coming off the back of like he scored a shed load of goals for PSG. They're not necessarily desperate for a centre forward, whereby when Falcao signed, they needed a striker so badly they were like almost forcing him to play, even though when he wasn't very good. Whereas now, I think he's a great signing, Cavani, to play alongside.
I think he also had injury problems as well.
Youngsters, yeah.
I think he also had injury
I
problems
thought he did
as
all
well.
right, mate.
Falcao. I think he'd had.
Yeah, knee surgery.
He had knee surgery, yeah. So he had serious issues, and I think now he's only just getting over them now. You know what I mean? Potentially so.
Do you know what? Rob Boyles just said that Jack Wilshere's been released by West Ham, and he questions whether the MLS would be the next step. Do you know what? I would not be disappointed. Cardiff City should offer Jack Wilshere a pay-as-you-play deal, because on his day, Jack Wilshere is a phenomenal player, and he's far better than anything Cardiff have got. His problem is he can't stay fit, and it's all to do with his running style, apparently. But I really would offer him, if he wants to stay in the UK, he hasn't. I wouldn't imagine he's going to have a great deal of offers.
No.
Offer him not big, huge money, but offer him a good contract based on minutes on the pitch.
This might come across, probably sound ridiculous, but Jack Wilshere was the best technical footballer to come out of England, apart from probably Gaza. You know what I mean?
Since Gaza, mate. He was
a real deal. And if it wasn't for injury problems, he could have been England's best midfield player ever. He could have helped them win the World Cup because he would have dominated the midfield with the right players. You know, I see that. We were on about with Emile the other month about the golden generation. With Jack coming through as a younger player, with those kind of players, he would have stepped into the mould and took the pressure off the Stevie G's, the Frank Lampard, give them a chance to roam and go and do their thing. And with them being left-footed as well, he could have given them a little bit of balance. I'm not saying play out wide on the left, but he would have given them a little bit more balance to help that team tick a little bit.
Spot on, mate. And just tying that into what we were talking about earlier, really, with footballers earning so much money, like Jack Wilshere has not played half as much as what he should have, but he's set for life. Now, don't get me wrong, Jack Wilshere deserved that one, like the big contract he got with Arsenal when he got it. But my question would be, since then and before then, what had he done? Like he made 125 appearances for Arsenal, but at the age of, he's now 28. He came into the Arsenal side at like what, 17, 16. Yeah. He's only made like, I don't think he hasn't even made 200 league appearances.
And this is
in 12 years that is made.
And this is the shame, Si, you know, because you know what I mean. Like people judge footballers on contracts they have and the amount of money that they've got and they won't have to work and the multi-millionaires and you know what I mean. But Jack himself.
Oh no, I wouldn't have.
I'm not saying. I'm not on about you. I'm on about
overall.
Yeah, I'm just. Jack himself will look at has he achieved what he wanted to achieve? No. Has he won the trophies that he'll have wanted to achieve? Nowhere near. Has he got the England caps that he deserved? No. You know what I mean? There's loads of no's that there should be yeses because he was that good, or is that good. He still is that good. He just needs to, I don't know, get a little bit of luck and play some football and enjoy being a footballer again. Because I feel sorry for him because you know what I mean. I know, and we just said with Brian Deane that how depressing it can be that tomorrow could be your last game as a player, for example. That. Yeah. He could have kicked his last game as a professional footballer. Nobody knows what's going on, and that will affect him mentally a long time, you know. And I hope that he has the right people around him. I hope he does get a move and it flourishes him, and he enjoys his football and he plays until he's 45, because then he'll have had a good career. But you know what I mean. I just think he's had so many injury problems, and his body's taken an absolute hammering over the recent years, and it's gonna have taken a toll which nobody can see, maybe.
Spot on, mate. Okay, last couple of questions. Can you believe Man United have sold Chris Smalling when they are leaking more goals than they have since 1971 after the season he's just had? Has he had his chance?
Yes and no. I can see why they've sold him. I think he went over to Roma. last season. Loved it, flourished, really enjoyed the lifestyle. Really, I seen a few interviews. Really enjoyed the games of football. He's playing for a very, very, very good football club last year, and he came back to Man United and wanted to go back. So for me, you know what I mean, from a professional point of view, a move, it's the best movies. It's the move that he's wanted.
I get it for him, but from Man United's point of view, I just think he's probably the best centre back of the club.
I totally agree, but you can't keep players who don't want to be there, and I think he's probably outstayed his welcome a little bit because of them not wanting to keep him last year. That he's probably thought, well, they didn't want me last year, so I'm not going to stay and play second fiddle, not get the move that I want, the dream move that I want, and then in 3 weeks' time be sat on the bench again. He's a little bit selfish, but for me, I can't really fault.
But I also think if they told him he was going to be first choice in the summer now, on the back of his performance last year, he probably would have stayed.
Oh, 1,000,000%. If he's had a very good career, but obviously came through. Obviously started at Maidstone, and then obviously came through the really, really hard work in life to be a footballer. So you know what I mean. He deserves everything from where he is now. So he's obviously started at the bottom, and he's going to finish right at the top.
Spot on, mate. Last two questions then. Number one, do you think a European Super League would work?
Part of me would like it. Would it take away from the Champions League, which I do like, and which is exciting. I would like to see before that something in Britain which brings over Celtic and Rangers. We spoke about this quite passionately on various shows. If that's a cup competition, to see if Celtic and Rangers can battle out in within the English clubs before that happens. Because I just look at the Champions League. Is the format of the Champions League exciting enough to be replaced by a league format? Probably not at the minute.
Yeah, spot on, mate. Pick any two football guests, one realistic and one unrealistic for the show. That's a good way to finish.
Oh.
So go on, you go. I'll tell you what, you pick your unrealistic one first. They got to be alive.
Unrealistic one. I would love to get Ronaldo on. I would just sit and just drool at the screen for a good 90 minutes, as would probably every female who watches the show.
Yeah. I would love to get Roy Keane on.
Fab. Is that the unrealistic one?
You tell me.
And one which I would love to get on, and I don't believe it's a pipe dream, because we've had his strike partner on the show is Michael Owen.
Yeah.
Or Ryan Giggs.
There's history there. There's history there between me and Mickey Owen. No, there's not. He wouldn't remember. I remember, but he wouldn't. One day I'll tell the story. Not until he's been on, though. Maybe I'll tell it when he's on, see if he remembers.
So my dad just wrote Gaza, and I would love to have had Gaza on when Gaza was Gaza. You know what I mean? When Gaza was in his before his problems, or probably maybe he's at the beginning of his problems, where, you know what I mean. I'm just happy to see Gaza still with us at the minute. To be honest,
yes.
I'll be honest with it.
Yeah, my realistic one, it's difficult now, because where do you draw the line at realistic and unrealistic? Because if you'd asked me this when we first started the show, Roy Keane's not realistic, but we've had Emil Heskey, we've had Mehmet Dalman, who doesn't do media. You know, what's realistic and what's not realistic at the end of the day? I look at some of the guests I've had on the cricket show, and I think, well, if we can get them, why can't we get Roy Keane? So it's just about knowing the right people to make that contact at the end of the day. I would love to get Jason Kumas on, because I think he's a fascinating character and an excellent footballer back in the day. Who else we got? Leo Fortune West is obviously be a good one. A lot of the Cardiff ones, Cardiff sort of heroes and people like that, we've either had or lined up already. But Jason Kumas is an interesting one. Actually, no. Yeah, Jason Kumas or Craig Bellamy would be my two, which I'd really like to get on from a Cardiff point of view.
Yeah.
Both fascinating characters. think we'll leave it there, mate.
Yeah, let's finish that. Good way to finish. Enjoy tonight. Really enjoyed having Brian. I thought he was fascinating. Loves the story, which is
which was good for me.
Fabulous, yeah, no, fabulous. Really enjoyed it. Nice to reminisce about players, clubs, managers. Just to listen to the story. But no, it was great.
Yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was great to have another legend on the show. I just love that. It's like I say, mate. It's amazing. Just doing the show. I thank you to everyone who's watched.
And next Monday could be an interesting one, by the way. So just to give the viewers a little hint that we're hoping for a current midfielder who's played in the Champions League this year, who won the title last season with his club, his current club.
Which title?
The league title.
Yeah, which league though?
I'm not giving that information out.
Can you give it to me at least?
You know it.
I know. I'm just playing.
People can guess.
Yeah, Gav. I've tried that one. It's not going to happen, unfortunately. And I'm not going to put the name up because it's not fair. Gaz, maybe one day, but it's finding the time. Jay Bothroyd is another guest I would love to get on. And Michael Chopra, both of them. I'd like to get them both on together, actually. I think that could be a good show. But there's loads of stuff. Guys, check out the trailer for the first 3 episodes of the new series. It's dropping past on YouTube and 9:40 on the Facebook page. Please give it a share, spread the word. It's going to be phenomenal. And you might see a familiar face appear on it at some point. But I can tell you this, there's an ex-Wales international, ex-England international, ex-Northern Ireland international, a current EFL club captain, a Cardiff City legend, and me, and Jacob, my co-host. And it's going to be very interesting. And I think in the current climate, it's something that we all need to talk about. Look after each other. Thank you for tuning in. And we will see you Friday for the championship show, 7 o'clock. Remember, it's the earliest start. We'll be ranting.
Yep.
My mummy and daddy have been talking about life insurance. It sounds like something to protect my brother and me, but I don't really understand. Then my auntie Louise told mummy about Bespoke Financial Teesside. She said they're a local company who helped her with her life insurance. Mummy got in touch, and because they're based locally, a man called Darren was able to come to our house. He was really friendly. Darren stayed for a cup of tea and made it all really easy to understand. He said that life insurance will protect our home and family if anything bad were to happen. Like if mummy or daddy got sick, then we'd get enough money to take care of us, and our house would be paid for so it wouldn't get taken away. After an hour, Darren said goodbye and mummy and daddy seemed a lot happier. Once it was all sorted, we could all relax and watch a film together as a family. I don't know why they didn't do it sooner.
I belong to you.
I belong to you.
Do just what you want.